Alrighty, so this video is going to be called Shekere net. Let's see. It's going to be called something. You'll read it. Now, I'm addressing this particular video to people who have interest in the direct crafting of the net of the Shekere. However, if you are on this channel because of other things, other videos I've made, I'm gonna talk. Basically, I'm just gonna record things that as I go along. So it'll be kind of like a workshop effect, and also just talking thoughts, but also giving what people have said to me in the past. When I used to do workshops and work in person with people, people would say, they would sign up to take a class and they'd say, oh, I want to pick your brain. See, I remember when that statement, that idea, and then I want to show stuff. Look at that big and beautiful. And this is also going to be a sales, like an advertisement thing, because I'm going to finish this one. Oh yeah, so people would say, I want to pick your brain, and I still don't like that saying. What do you mean, pick my brain? Leave my brain alone. But I know what that means. It's like they want to find out how you think. Now, the first time someone wanted to pick my brain was about how I made these, and I thought that was bizarre, because it's just sort of seems like a simple process to me. So anyway, however, I must say that the person who got me involved in making Shekeres, let's call him Danny. I was already a macrame person. I used to make little earrings out of macrame with little beads on them and everything. So I thought I knew macrame pretty well, which is basically what this is. So set this down. So anyway, he didn't teach me like, here, I'm going to show you how to make a Shekere. I was doing others, like we would sit together and he would just make them. And then he would give me a gourd and these hand tools, and he would say, here. And so we would just talk and visit, and I would watch him. I've never been to a workshop in my life, and he didn't teach me in the way you would teach a workshop, like step 1, step 2. So every time he got to the, let's see how I can do it. Every time he got to the, this ain't gonna work. Every time he got to the bottom of a net, making a net, I used to wonder how he got the drawstring to the last row. This stupid camera. And I'll tell you what, it's a good thing that I didn't, like in the 80s and 90s, I was gonna maybe make a VCR demonstration teaching thing on a VHS. Good thing I didn't, but I felt like, well, success means you have to, teach that way. So anyway, this is before YouTube. Oh my God. Anyway, the point, okay, here we go. So the point being, I didn't know how he did it until he showed me. So I thought this was going to work if I just put the camera on here and talked while I worked. And again, I made a couple Shekere videos, and I noticed the views kind of crawled up more on those. I don't know who's looking at them, but anyway, crawled up more on those than, okay, here we go. That'll work. Now I gotta move to go get something. Well, no, I'm not gonna move. Okay, what's happened is, okay, what's happened is I've made the last row of beads on here, and I'm ready to tie the thing off. And I'm gonna explain what I'm doing, and then I'm also gonna talk, all kind of storytell at the same time, because doing work that's repetitious and stuff like that, it gives you a lot of time to think and talk, right? I mean, talk, to think is like if you're not listening to music or if someone's not sitting with you or whatever, if you do this by yourself, there's a lot of time to think. But now that I'm self-conscious on a camera, I'm just going to finish doing this part. And so what I wanted to say, let's see, let's stick to the net making thing, because the greatest joy, all right, when I used to have to make these for a living, I had to make these for a living, as many as I could, and then I would go to these craft fairs, music stores, when there was no internet, to sell them. And right now I'm doing a sales pitch because, I'll show you in a minute. So I had to work. So today I don't really have to. But I could use $500. And this one I'm working on right now, which is large. It's a large gourd. It was grown in Georgia. I found it online. It's also very, let me see if that's working. It's also quite thick, and I haven't finished yet cleaning out the inside. I'm going to sand this down a little more. Then I'm going to burn some design on there. Then I'm going to oil up the skin a little bit. And the thing is, when you make the shekere, it depends on how you do the net, but this all the nets I make pretty much are removable. This one here, this is made with wooden beads, and let's see, this string is the same as this. And one of the pure joys, and also a selling point, like if you make an item and you sell it for a bunch of money to a stranger, it's sort of like you want to guarantee that the instrument isn't going to break, or that you're using good material. So I found this string, so that's what, I guess that's what you'd call a secret. Through the years, I've tried different kind of string. So this stuff is called artificial waxed sinew, and we used to get it from Tandy Leather. But if you wanted to get this kind of string, and the reason the string is so cool, after all these decades, it still is a thrill to use. It's waxed, number one. Is that in there? Okay. It's waxed, and you see these little tiny beads right here? This string, here's the big secret, allows you to, where's the bead? Okay, a lot of shekere makers online, you'll see they use, excuse me, you see, they use this kind of bead, which is called a crow bead, right? With a large hole in it, and then you can fit all kind of size string through the hole without thinking about it. Now, what I did, because good old poverty or whatever limits me to using the last of my beads, like on this one, this one took forever to make, even though it's small and it's a different string. I'm jumping around, but this bead right here has this little teeny hole, and I had trouble getting this string because it's not waxed, and it would bend and all this and fray as I was trying to get it through this hole. It took forever just to string one bead, which was ridiculous because I was waiting in the mail for this to come and I didn't have it. This string allows you to, you don't use a needle or anything like that. It allows you to, the wax allows you to just make a nice tip on it, and it just goes through small seed beads like this. See, to me, this is almost like petty information, but at the same time, it's sort of a secret. Because, like, I could have used crow beads on all these instruments all my life, but then I would get bored as heck. So I started making nets that were decorative, just because otherwise I'd be bored. And I had a music store in Seattle that he saw one of the ones I made for myself that was just decorative, and he says, oh, if you make those like that, I'll buy them from you even more. He used to buy like John's music, he used to buy half a dozen at a time. and sell them right away. And I says, well, John, if I make it fancy, I'll have to charge you more money. So he did. But you know, the retail people, they always put a price tag double the amount that you get for an instrument. It's a crime and a sin because they're getting the art galleries and music stores, they want as much money as you get. So like, let's say, like this one, it's taken me freaking days. It's rare as heck because not many people on the planet make them. It's going to be somewhat loud, but this is shop talk once again. These are wooden beads that I had random, and I had to do some counting. These are glass, these are wooden, these are, I think, ceramic. And this is a real heavy, I don't even think it's silver. I think it's just some kind of heavy, like whatever the next thing is. I don't think they're silver, but they could be. Point being, like, hear that? If I tried to make this net using only small, hear that? Anyway, each beat has a different pitch when it hits the echo of the chord, is the point. And what I learned early on is if you made a net that was full of heavy, loud beats, your instrument was way too loud. And that was years ago when I made one and no one bought it. Why isn't anyone buying it? And that was because the net was too loud, right? So throughout the years, I learned how to choose beats that had a certain weight and a certain pitch to it, certain density to it. So this time, like, this thing is, like, if you play this hard, it's going to be fairly loud, but hopefully the sound of the loudness will be evenly distributed because the ones that are making the most sound are these big ones and these heavy ones. These guys are mostly decorative. However, if you have a hypersensitive hearing or whatever it is I got, because I'm telling you, simplicity and poverty make you notice things that normally you wouldn't pay attention to. These beats are also going to have a background sound of that high pitch, you know, and to me that's extremely exciting for some reason. But anyway, for whatever reason, I'm just saying, okay. Meanwhile, like I've sold a lot of shekeres in my life to people who were not musicians that just bought them for decoration to have them in their house. Like I sold one on eBay once to a guy in Norway, and he paid $500. I made this really complex net, and he must have had the money. He said, I just want it to put in my hallway. I said, okay. Even though it was made to be a good instrument to play, it was also a real fancy net. So the market for these was addressed to people that bought them, not just to play them, professional or whatever, but to people that were just wanted to collect them. Even some old ladies bought them to put flowers in there. I discovered that in the 80s, like, oh, okay. Because the market for making these was somewhat limited and still is, you know. This is why when I was making these for a living and had to pump them out, as they say, you know, make a lot, I would have to find, well, the last time I made 30 of them for Jim Grainer's Shekere workshop at the Folklife Festival in Seattle. That was way back in 2007. As he called me up and he goes, I'm doing a Shekere playing workshop. And he says, can you bring some instruments? I didn't have very many with me at the time, and the workshop was 2 months away. And I said, well, you know, I wasn't going to go to that thing, but I'll make them and send them to you. He didn't want to buy them. He wanted me to show up. So he says, if you make them, you can sell them at the end of the workshop, just set up in the hall. And I did that, and I made like $2,000 in one day because all his students were there to learn how to play, and I let him do the job of teaching. He was famous for that at the time. what was ironic was that his teaching style was almost upside down of mine. So funny. And then after the workshop was done, all the people were filing out of the room, and I'm sitting there with this little table and all these Shekeres, and they all bought them one at a time. So that, and Jim Grainer, he would teach corporate drum circles. He's a white guy, right? Teaching African rhythms at what were called corporate drum circles. I don't know if they still happen. But anyway, if I wanted to go back to work big time, I would, fly around and take a bunch of instruments over to those places and just sell them, boom, 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 to people that have the money. And even if they never play the Shekere again, they would have the instrument there. And it's basically like to sell one of these. All right, here's my favorite sales pitch. Okay, see this little guy right here? Or better yet, how about this little guy? Okay, see him? Whoops. Here he is. Listen. It's a little gourd. It was grown. Yeah, these came from my friend's backyard last month. She just had them in the yard. And she wasn't going to use them. Okay, so I brought it here now. Okay, so I cleaned it out, did a little burning. Quite frankly, it probably took all of 8 hours or less to make the whole thing from start to finish if I didn't take a rest. Okay, so someone's going to look at this and say, oh, like, all right, there's a store down the street. And then the question is, how much does it cost? If I said this costs $150, who's going to buy it? Hardly no one. If I say this is going to cost $60, okay, $75. If I was going to put this on eBay, first of all, people think small is cheap, right? Second of all, they think lightweight is cheap. Third of all, they think this is third world material.